When working with web forms, one of the most important and first things you're going to need to do is get the values out of these fields. So let's look at how to do this with text fields. I have these 3 quantity fields. I'm going to fill in a value in each one. 1, 2, 3. Simple. Okay, so now I want to use JavaScript to get these values so I can use them later in calculations. So let's open up the console. I'm going to open up the developer tools with Command-Option-I. Now, in my JavaScript console, I can try some different methods for doing this. So everything that I'm interested in is going to be in the global document object. First thing that I'll do, you'll see this a lot in various code that you'll see online, is the document.forms property. So if I type that in and press return, I get an array of all the forms in the document. Now in this case, there's only one, so it's an array with only one thing in it. So if I want to get just that form, just type my square braces and put in a 0 to get the first one. And now instead of an array, I just get this form. So if I want to get a specific field in there, what I need, I'm going to type up on my keyboard to get the last thing I typed. Now using the dot to descend further, I have the elements property, which is another array. And it's an array of all of the elements in that form. That is, all the fields. So if I want to get a specific one of those, I can put in my square braces again and take out the first, that is the 0th element of the elements array, like this. So now I can see the first element, and then I can take its value, again with the up arrow. I'm going to add on the value property. So this is in the global document object, the forms array, the elements array, and then the value property of that first element. And it is 1. Okay, this works just fine. And I can use this to get the next one and the one after that. Excuse me. The one after that would be 2 in the array. So there we go. 1, 2, and 3. So it does work, but I'm kind of hamstrung if I do it this way, because if I want to move these around, I would have to go back and change the accompanying code. So this is not ideal. Let's try a different way. I'll clear my console. And this time, instead, I'm going to use document.getElement by ID. Now this lets me get a single element from the document object model by its ID. What is its ID? And we saw this before, but I'm still going to use the inspector to find it and make sure I'm right. So I'm going to right-click this element and then choose Inspect Element. And it takes me right to the elements in the document in a nice outline. And I can see the ID right here. So if I double-click this, that makes it editable, and I can copy it using Command-C. Switch back over to the console. And now getElement by ID is a function. So I'm going to put in the parens, and then it takes a string, which is the ID, which I'll paste in with Command-V. So if I just hit return there, I can see the actual element here in the console. And if I want to get its value, I do the same thing I did before, just take the element property from that item. And there we go, 1. And I should say that this value property works both for getting the value, that is reading it, or for setting the value or writing it. So I can change it by using an assignment here with the equal sign. So if I want to change 1 to 10, I make the change, and there it is. And this will work for any of these elements. So let's take a look at the ID on this one, which is cold. So I'll use up arrow to get the last thing I typed. I'll change this to cold, set this to 99, because I really love cold pressed olive oil. 99 is returned here, and the value is set up here. So this is really handy. Another thing that works, these form elements only have IDs right now, but here in the web inspector, I can edit this. So I'm going to add a name property. This is what we used to do before we had to use IDs. This is, talking Stone Age on the web. But if I add a name element, let's just call this text_cold, like that. Now, if I set the value to 88, to prove that we're doing something different here, and switch over to the console, I can also get these by name. So if I use document.forms, and I'll use the array index here, that name that I just set was text_cold. I'll get rid of the assignment. And there we go, 88. So if you have names on your form elements, this will also work. You can access those as properties of the form itself. And I'll also mention, this will work if you use the ID of your form. So if I scroll up here and grab my ID, I'll just copy this. And now instead of getting the element by ID of this field, instead I'm going to use the form. And then check the text cold property. Its value. Once again, 88. So we have lots of different options. I think the easiest one is this, where you have an ID on the form element and you can address it directly this way. But there might be times if you're using a particularly inflexible content management system, or if you as the designer don't have direct control over the markup because another developer has worked on it and they're really recalcitrant, who knows? Having a variety of different ways to access these properties is very useful. But if you do have direct control over the markup, I couldn't recommend more keeping an ID on each of the elements and then using this method to access them. So that is how you can read and write the values of text fields using JavaScript.